Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Jaya Radha Girirari, Radha Girirari, Shri Radhe. Jaya Radha Girirari, Radha Girirari, Shri Radhe. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Jai Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Vishnu Thakur Mahaprabhu ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam, Anand Bhagavatam, Namacharya Chaitanya, Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Yadvaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyam Bhaktivinoda Radha, Shri Govardhana ki jai, Shri Vrindavan Dhama ki jai, Navadvip Dhama ki jai, Gangamai Jamunamai ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Vrinda Devi Shrimati Tulsi Maharani ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Tatik Rata ki jai, Damadamas, Shishi Radha Giridhari ki jai, Shishi Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani ki jai, Shishi Gauranathai ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the lotus feet of Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Hare Krishna. Jaya Bhakti. Shri Varam Swami Namo. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale. Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshapadam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. This is Canto 4, Chapter 13, text number 11. And we have it on the board. So please repeat. Matva tam jadam unmatam kula vridaha samantrinaha vatsaram upatim chakrur yaviyamsam ramehe sutam matvatam jadam unmatam kula vrida samantrinaha vatsarambu patim chakrur yaviyam sam rame sutam matvatam jadam unmatam kula vrida samantrinaha vatsarambu patim chakrur yaviyam sam rame sutam matvatam jadam unmatam kula vrida samantrinaha vatsarambu patim chakrur yaviyam sam rame sutam matvatam jadam unmatam kula vrida samantrinaha vatsaram upatim chakrur yaviyam sam rame sutam matvatam jadam unmatam kula vrida samantrinaha vatsaram upatim chakrur yaviyam sam rame sutam matvatam jadam unmatam kula vrida samantrinaha vatsaram upatim chakrur yaviyam sam rame sutam matvatam jadam unmatam kula vrida samantrinaha vatsaram upatim chakrur yaviyam sam rame sutam. Please repeat. Matva, thinking. Tam, utkala. Jadam, without intelligence. Unmatam, mad. Kula vridaha, the elderly members of the family. Samantrinaha, with the ministers. Vatsaram, Vatsara. Bhupatim, ruler of the world. Chakruhu, they made. Yaviyangsam, younger. Brahmahe, of Brahmi. Sutam, son. Translation. For this reason, the ministers and all the elderly members of the family thought Utkala to be without intelligence and, in fact, mad. Thus, his younger brother, named Vatsara, the son of Brahmi, was elevated to the royal throne, and he became king of the world. Please repeat. For this reason, the ministers and all the elderly members of the family thought Utkala to be without intelligence and in fact mad. Thus his younger brother, named Vatsara, the son of Brahmi, was elevated to the royal throne, and he became king of the world. Purport. It appears that although there was monarchy, it was not at all an autocracy. There were senior family members and ministers who could make changes and elect the proper person to the throne, although the throne could be occupied only by the royal family. In modern days also, wherever there is a monarchy, sometimes the ministers and elderly members of the family select one member from the royal family to occupy the throne in preference to another. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shtapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dati Swapadantikam Namo Mahabhadanaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namni Gaura Vijay Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I'll read the translation again. For this reason, the ministers and all the elderly members of the family thought Utkala to be without intelligence and, in fact, mad. Thus, his younger brother, named Vatsara, the son of Brahmi, was elevated to the royal throne, and he became king of the world. Hare Krishna. Here we're finishing up the story of Dhruva Maharaj. Dhruva Maharaj has let's see. Hold on. Yeah, so we've Dhruva Maharaj has returned back home, back to Godhead, and now we're hearing about his descendants. Vidura is still on his travels, having left Hastinapur out of disgust and rejection by the evil sons of Dhritarashtra, and he is he's been directed to Maitreya Muni, having met Sri Uddhava, and he is receiving spiritual guidance from Maitreya Muni. Maitreya Muni is enlightening him. Well, Vidura is Prema Bhakta. Vidura is a Nityasiddha, eternal associate of Krishna, full of love for Krishna. And naturally, as a loving devotee, he is relishing topics of Krishna and inquiring about topics of Krishna from the relevant places. So he has been directed to Maitreya as a relevant source of knowledge, and he is hearing from him. So he's heard about the glories of Dhruva Maharaj, and now he's inquiring about his descendants. And Dhruva Maharaj had a son, and his name was Utkala. And Utkala didn't desire the royal throne, like father, like son. So Dhruva Maharaj is a pure Vaishnava, highest caliber, and Utkala, similarly, he is an exalted Vaishnava who doesn't want to be distracted from his absorption in Krishna by external responsibilities and duties in the material world. So he sees an opportunity to leave that, and he's completely detached from external activities and the opinions of the material world and the people within it, people conditioned by the modes of material nature. So he's described as being equipoised, as seeing everything, being situated in Krishna, particularly mentions Paramatma, the Lord in everyone's heart, that from which all existence emanates and is a manifestation of his energy. He's seeing the Lord everywhere, and he wants to continue with his practice of bhakti yoga. He doesn't want to have any distraction in his practice of bhakti. He just wants to do bhakti, nothing else. He just wants to do bhakti and nothing else. A very good desire for us to aspire for. And actually, the life of a sadhaka should be that he's only doing bhakti and nothing else. So how to only do bhakti and nothing else? This is a good question. Here's one example of how to do bhakti and nothing else. Only engage in the angas of bhakti. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. Pretty much from the description we get, it seems that Utkala, he's only engaged in his own internal Krishna consciousness. He doesn't want to engage externally at all with any material responsibilities or any duties of the world. He is an example of someone from Bhagavatam, and there's other examples also of self-realized devotees who feign being materially incompetent for the sake of not being distracted in bhakti. So he says Utkal appeared to be less intelligent. Sorry. Utkal appeared, this is the previous verse, text 10. Utkal appeared to the less intelligent persons on the road to be foolish, blind, dumb, deaf, and mad. Although actually he was not so. He remained like fire covered with ashes without blazing flames. So externally he didn't manifest this consciousness. For the here Bhagavatam says less intelligent people. That is, anyone who can't recognize Krishna consciousness, less intelligent from the perspective of Bhagavatam. So they couldn't recognize him. Well, they couldn't actually perceive his consciousness, perceive his Krishna consciousness, his Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhava Mati. Couldn't see it because he didn't show it, and he wasn't interested in doing anything of the external world. So Bhagavatam gives this nice, text 10 gives this beautiful description that he remained like fire covered with ashes without blazing flames. So the fire of his bhakti, the fire of his Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhav was covered over, just like a fire can be covered by ashes. When a fire is kind of, you know, in the example, when the fire is burned down, then actually if you take an iron rod into that fire, even though there may not be flames, that's not the hottest part of the fire. The flames are kind of a little bit external. You take an iron rod and you put it inside the fire. We do this at the Hare Krishna school when we do forging. On the forge, they take an iron rod and they put it inside the fire. It's not like it's a fire with lots of flames like you have at home to keep your house warm, or like when you're having a bonfire where there's lots of flames. But inside is super hot, hot enough to melt the metal. But similarly, his Krishna consciousness was not externally manifested. It was deep within, and it was very powerful Krishna consciousness. I mean, to function like this is highly advanced bhakti, where he is obviously such an advanced Vaishnava that he is paying no attention to the opinions of others. Get this nice description in Bhagavad Gita of self-realized person and this kind of grades of how they see things. You know, they don't see any difference between stone and gold. So all physical objects, they just see everything as Krishna's energy. This is Krishna's energy, stone. This is also Krishna's energy, gold, both to be used in his service. No personal attachment to either. If I see gold and I see stone, I recognize the difference. Based on my personal attachment, I'm like, oh, gold, I could use that. Hare Krishna. Vaishnava, he sees gold. Ah, this is for Krishna's service alone, nothing else, no personal attachment, just for Krishna's pleasure. Ah, stone, that can also be used in Krishna's service for his pleasure, nothing else. Same, doesn't matter. None of it's mine. I don't own it, so it's not mine. So whose is it? Well, it's Krishna. Everything's Krishna. What do we own? Nothing. We don't own anything. All we have is ourself. I. My conscious awareness of myself. That is all I own. That is I. That is the self. Everything else is external to the self. It's Krishna's energy. It's not the self. It doesn't belong to the self. So it's not mine. So whose is it? It's God's. It's Krishna's. So if everything other than I is Krishna's, then I can't claim anything on it. To claim anything on anything outside of myself, the very pure self, the Atma, is illusion. It's egotistical to think that it's false ego, ahankara, to think that I'm the doer, to think that these things are mine. It's illusion, maya. Everything is Krishna's. We're also Krishna's. Jivera Swarupoi Nitya. Jivera Swarupoi Krishna Nitya. Jivera Tatashta Shakti Veda Veda. But the self is also the energy of Krishna. It's also Krishna's energy. We also belong to Krishna. We have our own independent existence, but we are Krishna's. We belong to him. We are part of him. We are part of his existence. Similarly, everything external to the self is Krishna's and is only to be used in Krishna's service. The highly advanced devotee, Uttama Adhikari. Uttama Adhikari is gradations. Uttama Adhikari doesn't just mean there's types of Uttama Adhikari. It's not that All Uttama Adhikaris are the same. Where does Uttam Adhikar start? It starts at Asakti, the stage of Asakti. From Shraddha to Prema, there's a stage of Asakti. It comes before Bhava. Someone who has Asakti, great attachment to Krishna, is an Uttama Adhikari. A Bhava Bhakta is an Uttama Adhikari. Premi Bhakta is an Uttama Adhikari. And then there's grades of Premi Bhaktas. There's Premi Bhaktas in Mathura. There's Premi Bhaktas in Dwarka. There's Premi Bhaktas in Vaikuntha planet. There's Premi Bhaktas in Ayodhya. Premi Bhaktas in Rajadam. There's Premi Bhaktas in Aishwarya Rajadam. There's Premi Bhaktas in Braja itself. These are all Uttama Adhikaris, but they're not all the same. Someone who's a sadhaka at Sakti is not the same as a Siddha Vaishnava in the Lord's abode. So Utkala, I don't know from here what his particular bhav is, what his particular relationship with Krishna is, but we know he's a highly advanced, self-realized soul. And his only consideration is his service to Krishna, which is going on within. It's not going on anywhere else. He's not doing anything external. He's not worshipping a Murti. He's not engaged in any external seva or responsibilities. So he's engaged in internal Krishna consciousness, smarana. And smarana, there's grades of smarana. So he's always engaged in that. So he's highly advanced stage of smarana. Look at the Nectar Instruction, text 8, purport. Here from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada relays the 5 dasha grades of absorption in Krishna, from Shravana dasha to, as a technical term, refers to basically prema dasha, when someone has their absorption in Krishna at the level of prema bhakti. Such absorption, such internal Krishna consciousness doesn't require anything external for it to function. For us to remember Krishna, we have to hear and chant. As soon as we stop hearing and chanting, our absorption in Krishna goes down. Our hearing and chanting is our absorption in Krishna, and it feeds our absorption in Krishna. It feeds our attraction to Krishna. It feeds our appreciation of Krishna. It feeds our love for Krishna. And as our love for Krishna grows, as our attachment to Krishna grows, Shravanadi Shuddha Chitti, then as we engage in hearing and chanting, the consciousness is purified. It means what? What does it mean to purify the consciousness? Not like some impersonal thing. It's not like a piece of cloth that's dirty that you then get a scrubbing brush and some soap and scrub, and then the cloth cleans up. And it's just some inanimate object being worked upon by another inanimate object. Purification is a personal process. But purification means the cultivation of attachment to Krishna, and the devotee begging for mercy. Krishna's unlimitedly merciful, always. He's always acting for the benefit of his devotees. He never does anything other than act for the benefit of his devotees. He's Bhakta Vatsala. It's his Swarup Lakshana. It's his primary characteristic of his personality, is to act out of love for his devotees. That is who he is, essentially. That is his essential nature. That he is so merciful. Only. There's nothing else. That's him. That's his very inherent attribute. An inherent attribute of an object is never separated from the object. It is the object. You can't separate something that's inherent. An inherent attribute, a Swarup Lakshana of an object, is inherent to that object. It's inherent attribute. Without that attribute, it's not that object. It's something else. Sugar is sweet. If there's no sweetness, it's not sugar. Sweetness is the inherent attribute of sugar. You can't take sweetness away from sugar. It's always there. It's an inherent attribute. That's called Swarup Lakshana. Primary characteristic, or primary characteristic. There can be inherent attributes, and then they can be classified according to whether the attribute is primary or secondary. Sugar, the primary attribute of sugar is sweetness. It can be fluid, or it can be hard. It's still sugar. Those are secondary attributes of sugar. Primary attribute is sweetness. So Krishna's primary, he's Bhaktivatsala. He's always Bhaktivatsala. And then how does he manifest that? According to Yeyatamam Prapadyante Tam Sataiva Pajamyaham. According to how the devotee interacts with him. With Hanuman, he's loving as this is my servant, who will do anything for me. He'll jump across oceans for me. He will rip open his heart for me. With Vidura, he wants to give me bananas. But he's so blinded by love that he's giving me banana peels. But this is how he's loving me. So I'm reciprocating and eating the peels. Primary characteristic, Bhaktivatsala. Utkala's devotion is deep and doesn't depend on anything external. For people to be calling him less intelligent, foolish, means he's not walking around reciting shlokas. He's not walking around chanting the name of Krishna. Externally, these external activities can't be going on because no one would describe, someone like that if they could see, oh, he's reciting Shastra, he's speaking, he's doing the deity worship. But he wasn't doing any of those things. So he says, like, the fire of his bhakti was covered. You couldn't see it externally. And actually, you can't see bhakti externally. You can see the externals of bhakti externally. So therefore, we have to be, so Chaitanya Charitamrita explains that you have to be very careful about Vaishnava Aparadha. It's the only thing that interrupts the progress in our bhakti. Nothing else interrupts it. You might think it does, but that's due to external identification. It's only Aparadha that obstructs bhakti, nothing else. There's no external obstacle for bhakti. There's nothing that can, there's no cause, hetu, that can obstruct bhakti. Because bhakti is of the Swarup Shakti of Krishna, it's Krishna's internal potency. There's nothing external that can obstruct it. The only thing that can obstruct it is if you displease Krishna. Because bhakti means to please Krishna. Krishna's quality is Bhaktivatsala. He's always well-wishing to his devotees. The only thing that displeases him is when you offend devotees, when we offend devotees. Aparadha is the only obstacle. So we have to be very careful when we're dealing with Vaishnavas. Shanadapi Sanichena Taroiva Sahishtana Manina Manadena Kirtanya Sadahari. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vayevacha Patikanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. These mantras are the essential mantras of progress in bhakti. These mantras are the essential mantras for deepening our love for Krishna, cultivating our love for Krishna, and helping others in cultivate their love for Krishna. Humility and love are Sanatana Goswami explains these things are cause and effect. Love produces humility, humility produces love. Love produces humility, humility produces love. Love just goes on like a helix. It goes on and on and on and on. And as it goes on, then love increases. So bhakti is not so easy to recognize externally. So therefore, should never criticize Vaishnavas. because to identify their characteristics is not so easy. To identify love, you have to have love. Everyone has love. Every devotee has love for Krishna. It's either small, called Shraddha, or great, called Prema. But it's still love. Bhava Bhakti is described as Prema Surya, is an angsa of Prema, like a ray of Prema that enters the heart of the devotee. So it's like a ray. So if Bhava is a ray, and to get Bhava you have to have a Sakti. To get a Sakti you have to have Ruchi. So these are portions. It's like a fractions exercise. To get Ruchi you have to be steady. Nishta. Nishtita Bhajana Kriya. Steady Bhakti. To get steady Bhakti you have to go through an art and nivritti. These are not linear. It's not like there's an element to which you can look at it as linear, but it's Shraddha's foundational. Sadhu Sanga's foundational. Anartha Nivritti is always going on actually. Anartha Nivritti goes through all the stages. It's not like you're done with Anartha Nivritti, finished, bus, and then you can do the next thing, Ruchi. It's not like that. And then you can do a Sakti, and then you can, it's not like that. It's like a mechanistic, materialistic kind of perspective, conditional perspective. These are evolving states of being for the Vaishnava, in the heart of the devotee. There's elements of Ruchi at the very beginning. There's elements of a Sakti in the very beginning. It's all there in seed form. As we develop in Bhakti, these characteristics become more and more prominent. And then devotees can identify, this devotee has attachment, this devotee has taste. Kadamba Swami Maharaj, chanting all over Vrindavan in ecstasy. It's very evident. He's got Ruchi Bhakti. He's such a advanced Vaishnava, so much taste for hearing and chanting about Krishna. It becomes very evident when you see the impact of a devotee's devotion on others. This is external. So Srila Prabhupada says that where is that? I think it's in Nectar Devotion that those who criticize the activities of Krishna consciousness movement don't recognize the empowered. It's very rare that Srila Prabhupada will kind of say something in glorification or something that highlights his exalted position. You don't see it. It's not a devotee's quality to ever say anything that makes themselves stand out or look good or something like that. It's pratishta. Pratishta, Raghunath Das Goswami describes pratishta as, well, out of the anarthas that we're trying to get rid of, lust, anger, greed. Greed is the fuel for lust. Anger is the result of lust. So say a devotee is overcoming lust and anger and greed. Then he's got to deal with pratishta, Raghunath. This is manashiksha. Manashiksha is the padati for devotion. The book on how to cultivate bhakti, our bhakti, the bhakti of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan movement. Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Gaudiya Vaishnavism is a particular line of bhakti that goes to a particular destination. So in Manashiksha he says that he describes that pratishta is the desire for pratishta. Shta means stand or to be situated. Pratishta, to want to be recognized for being situated, to want to be recognized. The desire for recognition, name, fame, adoration, distinction. He says, for a person who is enjoying, cultivating, desiring those things, the enjoyment, the pleasure, the experience of that, it's a very crude example, but he really wants to get the point across. says that the desire for that is like bathing in the trickling urine of a donkey. Bathing in the trickling, and he says, don't do that. He says, instead, delight in the service of Radha, and it's very beautiful. He says, Gandharvaka Giridhari. Delight in their service. Delight in doing everything for their pleasure. Delight in doing everything for them. What is their service? What is their pleasure? What pleases Radharani? What pleases Krishna? That we should be interested in. That we should know about. That we should be cultivating. That's attentive japa. That's attentive hearing. That's attentive seva to the deities. That's attentive service. All under the shade of the spiritual master's lotus feet. That is the only juncture at which seva can be accessed. The lotus feet of the spiritual master, the shade of the lotus feet of the spiritual master is the place where service is conducted. There's no service outside of that location. The service of Sri Guru, the shelter of the spiritual master, that is the place where bhakti takes place. So Utkala, he is such an advanced devotee that he is completely internally absorbed. So that's not our sadhana that Srila Prabhupada has given us. Our sadhana is to engage in the service of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement and to spread the Sankirtan movement. So Srila Prabhupada installed the wonderful, most beautiful, most charming Shri Radha Giridhari and wanted his disciples and their followers which are all his followers. We are connected to Srila Prabhupada through our spiritual master. There's no direct connection with Srila Prabhupada for those that are not initiated by him. Our connection with Srila Prabhupada is through our spiritual masters. To presume otherwise is not the right etiquette, because we can't go directly. We don't jump over anyone in disciplic succession. In one sense, we have a direct relationship with everyone in disciplic succession, but we have to recognize and cultivate those relationships with everyone in our disciplic succession through the proper channel. That's Vaishnava etiquette. That's how we have shelter under Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet. That's how we have shelter under Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's lotus feet, Srila Gopkishore Das Bhavaji Maharaj's lotus feet, Srila Jagannath Das Bhavaji Maharaj's lotus feet, all the way to the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna. Srila Prabhupada, of course, now I'm going into another big topic, but I'm finishing the class. So don't take this out of context. Don't take it out of context. Every follower of Srila Prabhupada has a direct relationship with Srila Prabhupada. The means of cultivating that relationship is through proper Vaishnava etiquette and proper understanding. For me, as an individual, my relationship with Srila Prabhupada is through my spiritual master, and it's also through all the devotees who have given me everything that I have in my Krishna consciousness now. If it wasn't for that very kind person that gave me a book on the street, if it wasn't for that very kind devotee who was running the Bhakti program at the temple and showed me how to put on a dhoti, if it wasn't for that kind devotee who encouraged me to get to Mangalati and learn about how to do the morning program, if it wasn't for that kind devotee who showed me how to do service, if it wasn't for that kind devotee who helped me when I needed it, where would we be in Bhakti? We always have to be grateful for all of our Shiksha Gurus. It's through them that we have a relationship with Srila. It's through our Diksha Gurus, for all of our Shiksha Gurus. But nonetheless, it is under the shade of the lotus feet of the spiritual master that we connect with Krishna consciousness, with bhakti, and engage in Krishna service. There's no other location for it. Outside of the instructions of the spiritual master, there's no bhakti. The first offense, disobey the orders of the spiritual master. Is it the first? Number one. The blasphemy, no. What's the first offense? The chanting the holy name? There are 10 offenses in the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maharaj. The first offense is as follows. Number one, to blaspheme the devotees who are dedicated. Blaspheme the devotees. Two, to consider the names of demigods. Three, to disobey. Three, it's number three. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. So bhakti is conducted under the instructions of the spiritual master. That's where it resides. And that's where we can access such Krishna consciousness that we desire. Okay, so I thank you for your kind attention. I hope that I've been able to say something that will encourage you in your own Krishna consciousness. Thank you for your tolerance and kind attention. Please forgive anything that is, I don't know. Hopefully I haven't said anything that offends anyone. I haven't intended to. And I didn't really speak on the topic of monarchy because I was more interested in Utkal. That was where my meditation went and my thoughts went when I was reflecting on this shloka and preparing with myself for this class. Especially at the moment with all of this news about, monarchies and all of that. I just thought, that's just another mundane topic. And I don't hear about that in the news. It's not a mundane topic. It's a topic of Varnashram. It has a relevance. It's very important. Some important points to be made so that we're clear about it. This particularly Srila Prabhupada does mention that it's not an autocracy, which is the general complaint that the modern kind of worldview, you could say, has with the concept of monarchy. That it's autocratic. It's just one person calling all the shots. But here actually we see that often in other places in Shastra we hear that a Brahminical council is involved in directing monarchy. Here, senior family members, Srila Prabhupada's emphasizing. So we can see there's layers. Brahminical council, senior family members. Not that any one person in the role of leadership is completely independent and of themselves. Shouldn't be like that, especially in Kali Yuga, because such power is very corruptive. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Does anyone have any comments or questions? In this Zoom, I don't know how many, there might be some Vaishnavis, devotees watching. Do they ever interact? Do they ever ask questions, or is it possible to kind of get any interaction? Right. There's a chat. There's no questions in the chat. Anyone here have any questions or comments? Prabhu, any thoughts? Any questions? Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, good. Yes, that's right. It's we have to cultivate our bhakti under the guidance of the spiritual master, under the association of devotees, to know, okay, what's my goal next? I know my goal is prema. It's like when you're traveling. We're going to go to, say you're going to Wellington. You can't, it's okay just to say I'm going to Wellington when you're starting driving off from Auckland. But when you get down to, say, Otaki or somewhere like Levin, you start thinking about the address in Wellington. Because Wellington's a big place. Back to Godhead, what does it mean? It's a big place. Back to Godhead is the whole Vaikuntha Loka. So Narottam Das Thakur in Prema Bhakti Chandrika, he encourages, what's in your sadhana, that will be in your perfection. So it's goal setting. Okay, where am I now? What's relevant for me now? And how to identify when, okay, I have this. Now where do I go? So we have to be able, that requires guidance and association with devotees to help us. And ultimately, guidance means everything's coming from Krishna. Krishna helps along the way to guide us back home. Starts very broad and becomes more specific as we move forward. We should know what that means along the way. Otherwise you can become complacent and ritualistic and mechanical in bhakti, where we're not being purposeful enough in our cultivation of bhakti for it to be enlivening, meaningful, and progressive. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Being appreciated and grateful is also bhakti.
Yes, it is. It is because bhakti, bhaktya sanjayate bhaktya. Bhakti comes from devotee. Bhakti comes from bhakti. So bhakti is in the devotees. So it's because of the devotees' bhakti that we've got some bhakti. The bhakti in the heart of a devotee inspired them to give us Krishna consciousness. So because we've been given something, we're receiving. We're only recipients, really. What do we do? What can we do? We can't. What can we do? Nothing. What do we know? Nothing. We're just recipients. So we've got everything to be grateful for. So gratitude is a foundational and evolving mood of a sincere devotee, and it is such a favorable bhag to cultivate. From gratitude, then we become, humility is cultivated. From humility, love is cultivated. So it's the foundational mood to cultivate. So important. Yeah. All right, I will finish. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.